So Uttkarsh, first thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very happy to come here on behalf of Jet's wonderful employees, the best that I have seen in the world in my 30 years of aviation experience. That's a good question. We are going through a bank-led bidding process right now. That bidding process is slated to end on the 10th of May. And honestly, that's the time when I can give you a much more definitive answer to the question that you have asked. The process needs to unfold, and we will be able to answer that question together with the potential investors once they have submitted their binding offer.
So, speaking about getting Jet Airways back in the air, how much money will we need? Especially when we speak about the emergency funding, how much money is required to get the airline back in a decent shape, and in how much time will we be able to do that?
So we have already made the request to the banks. It's a little over 1,000 crores. That is required to get a reasonable amount of aircrafts flying again, which gives us the platform from which we can rebuild. And we can do that a few weeks after this funding is made available. So it's not a lot of lead time. If you look at in all of the difficulties that Jet is going through, we continue to get hundreds of emails and tweets and posts and messages from people that are just ready to take the next Jet Airways flight. And that's the reason I'm confident that once we're able to get a few planes flying, we'll be able to fill them up very, very quickly.
Can you take us through the decision to temporarily suspend flights?
Uttkarsh, there was no decision. If you don't have money to pay for fuel, there's no decision to be made. Planes don't fly without fuel. And so there was a point where the banks decided that they were not able to fund us anymore, or not willing to fund us anymore, and at that point we just didn't have the money for fuel. So this was not a decision to be made.
So speaking about the amount of aircraft we're losing now, a lot of aircraft are being deregistered. Some of our slots have gone. How difficult will this be when it comes to the bidder really coming on board, because we have lesser slots now, so we are less attractive as we were as an airline. And also, once you go back on air, once you get the funding, how difficult will it be to get back to where we were?
So I'll talk about slots and aircraft in a minute. But let me tell you from my perspective, and I'm sure, in fact, I'll turn the tide and ask you a question from your perspective to make sure that I haven't understood India incorrectly. But the charm and the unique proposition of Jet Airways has always been its employees, a culture of warm Indian hospitality that we took to the world. It always has and always will be. And so slots and aircraft are important. Like I said, I'll address that. But what we have today is very much that employee base that has stood with us through thick and thin. So we've got the most essential building block for the airline with which we can overcome any adversity. Yes, practically we also need aircraft and slots. The Indian government has said that they will protect slots for Jet Airways. And I think that's a good move in the best interest of consumers to foster competition. And we can talk about that in a little while as well. And my thought is, with a good, healthy investor, it doesn't matter if aircraft have been deregistered. This is still India. India over the next 20 years will need multiple times the current aircraft that we have today and on order combined. So if we've got a good, healthy investor that's believing in us the way we believe in ourselves, aircraft will be here and there'll be a line of them. The government will preserve slots for us, and we've got the most essential ingredients. So as long as there's someone who can believe in us, and I think there are people out there, I'd like to think there are people out there, the bidding process as it unfolds will give us a better idea. But my view is we can rebuild.
So we've been speaking to people in the company as well, and they've told us there are some aircraft which have been deregistered, some are in the process, and some are still with us. Do you have a fair number of how many are still with us, and the whole process of deregistration has not yet been completed?
So yes, I can say that while we have a combination of aircraft that are being deregistered and or early terminated, the majority of them have not yet left the premise.
So they're still with us?
That's correct.
You met Arun Jaitley as well.
But I also don't want to say that in a manner that any lessor out there feels we're holding these hostage. That's not. We're a very legitimate business. We appreciate the fact that our lessors have also stayed with us. Our vendors have stayed with us through thick and thin. I call out the employees as well, but there are a number of suppliers that have been with us through thick and thin, right? And so for us, the rebuilding is for them as well.
Speaking about, you met the finance minister as well, along with the union guys, along with the Maharashtra finance minister Sudhir Mungantiwar. What were you asking the finance minister for, and what has been his response?
Yeah, first, I'd just like to say we're very grateful to the Maharashtra finance minister, Mr. Mungantiwar, for having made this initiative. We're very grateful. It's clear that he is looking out for the best interest of Jet Airways and the employees out of the goodness of his heart. He doesn't have to do any of this except for the welfare of the people and the welfare of the traveling public. We're a healthier aviation industry with Jet Airways. What we wanted to do was brief the finance minister, Shri Jaitley, on the state of Jet Airways, and we were extremely fortunate that Mr. Jaitley was very generous with his time. He gave us about an hour. And what we were requesting him was very similar to what we've talked about over here, that let's get some aircraft flying. Let's get an initial boost of investment to get these aircraft flying. It's good for the potential value that the banks are trying to extract through this bid process. We also told him that the most valuable asset that we have are our employees, and if we're not going to pay them, then they have no other choice but to find alternate means to put food on their table. And that means leaving the company. And that does not preserve the value for the banks either. So we also requested him that if something could be made available for our employees that are going through an incredible hardship, right? And the initial funding that we had requested was inclusive of something for our employees, something to keep us going, as well as for some of the select vendors who have supported us through this process in a skeletal format to get the airline up and running. And then the third aspect that we requested him was for help from the government within the purview of what they had. If you remember the SpiceJet case a little while ago, the government interceded in providing help with fuel companies, in providing help with the deferral of airport fees, an exception from an open offer, and other things like that. And if you look at how healthy SpiceJet is today, one would think that was the right decision for the traveling public. We don't actually spite that. All we are saying is that we deserve the same. We've had a 25-year history. We've had a capacity that was 3 times the size of SpiceJet's back then. I would say we deserve it, our people deserve it, the traveling public deserves for the similar type of government help and intervention to be able to resurrect Jet Airways. All you have to do is look at fares today to understand how bad it is out there for the traveling public not having Jet's capacity in the market. So these were the principal requests that we made to Shri Jaitley.
And what has been the response from him?
So he, like I said, was very generous with his time. I think he understood and he said he was sympathetic, and he said that he would take this up with the lenders to see what they can do with regards to each one of these.
I know most of the things which I'll in the next question will be confidential, but what has been the last word from the lenders when it comes to interim funding?
Well, there's no last word.
Because I've been told that you keep on doing meetings every day with the lenders, so it's an ongoing process.
It absolutely is, and it must be, right? It must be. You cannot resurrect and resuscitate Jet Airways from either this room or that room in isolation. It has to be done together. And we are in constant touch with the lenders of how to get it done in a manner that makes sense for them and makes sense for us. But I'd like to think that a flying Jet Airways makes definite sense for them because it preserves their value as well. And so, we are not talking about anything that does not make good economic sense for the lenders. This is not sort of charity for the sake of it. Of course, there is an incredible human angle to this because our employees are going through grave difficulty putting food on the table, EMIs to pay, and so are some of our vendors as well. And so there's a really sort of telling human story to this. But at the same time, we understand the bank's position, and this is fundamentally a financial proposition for them as well.
Yeah.
right? So we're in constant touch with them, and we will be. For us, we're not going to leave any stone unturned, right? We believe in Jet Airways. We will do whatever we can to try and convince other people to believe in us as well.
Vinay, how long till the temporary suspension stays? We've been told that by every passing day, the task for you to get the airline back in the way it was will be difficult. We're paying the airport fees, we're paying the employees, and we're not generating any revenue at this point of time. So everything is adding to our losses as well. How long do you think we can continue with this, and by when do you think we should really be back flying, because that's not making economic sense for the Jet Airways as well?
So Uttkarsh, I'd say, sort of going back to what we started talking of, we've got a bid process that's ongoing. It is a compressed bid process, ends on the 10th of May. Obviously I'd like to see Jet Airways flying tomorrow, but we are going through this lender-led bid process, which we will support in any way, shape we can. And my thought is that as part of this bid process, we have an ability, as long as someone believes in us and is willing to inject the requisite amount of equity in the manner that the lenders and the potential investors will decide, then I think that will be soon enough, right?
Vinay, one question everybody is asking at this point of time is that Jet Airways was a very healthy airline. We had started the turnaround process much before. I remember almost a couple of years back, when Mr. Amit Agarwal was CEO, he had also started the process, and you joined in with your expertise. What went wrong?
Look, this is very simple, and I'll spend just maybe a minute or two talking about it, but generally speaking, my mentality is a forward-looking mentality, not a backward-looking mentality. But people have probably asked this question 1,000 times, and so maybe I'll give you my 2 cents. Look, there's no surprise over here. There's no mystery over here. I have spent over a decade, almost a decade and a half, working in North America and US aviation. I've spent 7 years in various European countries and 7 years across Hong Kong, Korea, China, and Japan. And what we're facing is exactly what any other legacy carrier faced in any other part of the world when faced with low-cost competition. A couple basic things that we needed to do. One is improve your cost structure, create a competitive cost structure, and the other one is have a balance sheet to be able to give you the financial wherewithal to be able to restructure your costs. As you said, our cost restructuring was going well. There are some large elements related to fleet and subfleet complexity, related to long-term maintenance costs, related to gauge and stage and network design that you can't change on a dime. These things take time to necessarily do, which is why you needed a balance sheet to be able to help you through this. We were in the last stages of our balance sheet restructuring. Unfortunately, this is where we are. So what went wrong is essentially just a combination of these two. We just didn't have sufficient time to be able to continue with this strategy. But my view is now we still have residual time left, as long as we get an investor that believes in us. So again, I'd rather look forward than look backwards. There's plenty of opportunity for us to be able to put out a Jet Airways. Like I said, I fundamentally believe in it because we've got the essential building blocks, which is our employees. They have always been the key to Jet Airways. And I think we still have that going for us.
So, speaking about forward-looking statements only, when an investor comes in, how will you convince him that from here on, Jet Airways will, once it will fly in profit?
Yeah. So, look, it's not just convincing through an interview like this. Believe me,
I agree.
Investors will bring 7, 8 people. With every sort of financial walk of life. They'll build aviation experts, etc., etc. We've got a data room open. They're pouring through a ton of data. So the convincing will be fundamentally what our cost structure is today, how is it going forward, how we continue to maintain an efficient cost structure, what the network design is going to be, what your fleet and subfleet complexity looks like. So we're getting into sort of aviation parlance, but my view is that we've got more than 30 minutes to be able to convince them going forward, and I am very confident, having been here for the last 18, 20 months, that I will be able to convince them. We just need somebody as part of this process to be able to step forward, to be able to take us to the next level.
Last couple of questions from my side now. In your letter, while you were writing to the employees as well, you had said that you were in constant touch with the prospective bidders as well. Obviously, I would not, like you to name them, but what have been the conversations like?
Actually, I think you perhaps are misquoting me, because nowhere in any letter to my employees have I said that I'm in constant touch with prospective bidders. Because the fact is, this is a bank-led bidding process, and so I don't get the bids, I don't get the expressions of interest. It is the banks that do. We are running a data room that is open to all of the prospective bidders, and it's through that bank-led process that I will interact with them. So just to set the record straight on that.
Last question from my side: how hopeful and positive is Vinay Dube that Jet Airways will be flying soon and flying back with the same colors it was?
Look, I just want to say that that I am going to leave no stone unturned. Are we staring at something easy ahead of us? No, it's not easy. But like I teach my kids, I've got 12-year-old twins and a 14-year-old. And I teach them, and I'd like to be able to conduct myself with the same sort of ethos and philosophy, which is all you can do is have a sort of purity of heart and purpose and give it your best. And I'm here to give it my very best. I'm not going away anywhere. I'm going to give it my very best because I know I have the best interest of our people. I know that I have the best interest of the traveling public and the nation at hand, and I know that I have every Jet Airways employee behind me and backing me and thinking of the very same thing, right? So I won't put probabilities and percentages. I will just tell you that we are all here to give it our very best.